I never thought my collection of cute toys would be the thing to unravel my marriage. But there I was, frozen in the doorway of our spare room, watching Carson's eyes widen as he took in the shelves upon shelves of colorful plushies, figurines, and miniatures. Nora, he breathed, turning to me with a mixture of confusion and amusement. What is all this? I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. It's my collection, I managed to say, bracing myself for judgment or ridicule. To my surprise, Carson's face softened. He picked up a small, fuzzy rabbit and turned it over in his hands. How long have you been collecting these? Since I was a teenager, I admitted, stepping into the room. I know it's silly for a woman my age, but... No, Carson interrupted, placing the rabbit back on its shelf. It's not silly at all. I think it's kind of sweet. Relief washed over me, and I felt myself relax for the first time in years. You're not mad. Carson chuckled, wrapping an arm around my waist. Mad? Why would I be mad? Everyone needs something that brings them joy. I leaned into him, grateful for his understanding. I've always been afraid people would think I was childish or immature if they knew. Well, I think it's adorable, Carson said, kissing my cheek. Just like you. As we stood there, surrounded by my secret passion, I felt closer to Carson than ever before. But our moment of intimacy was shattered by the shrill ring of his cell phone. Carson pulled away, fishing the phone from his pocket. His brow furrowed as he glanced at the screen. It's Rebecca, he said, referring to his younger sister. I should take this. I nodded, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach as Carson stepped out of the room to answer the call. I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment of closeness was about to be overshadowed by something much darker. Little did I know, Rebecca's intrusion was just the beginning of a storm that would soon engulf our lives, threatening everything we held dear. Rebecca's presence in our lives grew like a weed, choking out the peace Carson and I had cultivated. It started with small things, a phone call during dinner, a surprise visit on our date night. But soon she was a constant fixture in our home, her saccharine voice grating on my nerves. Oh, Carson, she cooed one evening, batting her eyelashes. That little penguin figurine in Nora's collection is just adorable. I've always wanted one like that. I stiffened, my fork clattering against my plate. Carson glanced at me, then back at his sister. Well, I'm sure we could find you one online, Becca. But it wouldn't be the same, she pouted. That one has sentimental value, doesn't it, Nora? Before I could respond, Carson jumped in. Maybe Nora wouldn't mind if you borrowed it for a while, right, honey? I forced a smile, my jaw clenched. Of course not. That night, as I carefully wrapped the penguin for Rebecca, I felt a piece of my heart chip away. It was a gift from my late grandmother, irreplaceable in its sentimental value. Days turned into weeks, and more of my precious collection found its way into Rebecca's greedy hands. Each time, Carson assured me it was temporary, that his sister was going through a rough patch and needed the comfort. But the final straw came when I discovered my prized limited edition bunny missing from its place of honor. I tore through the house, panic rising in my chest, only to find Carson sheepishly avoiding my gaze. I'm sorry, Nora, he mumbled. Rebecca was having a really bad day, and I thought it might cheer her up. I stood there, trembling with rage and betrayal. And what about me, Carson? What about my feelings? He reached for me, but I stepped back. It's just a toy, he said softly. Those words cut deeper than any knife. In that moment, I realized the man I married didn't truly understand me at all. And as Rebecca's tinkling laughter drifted through the open window, I knew our marriage was balanced on a knife's edge, ready to topple at the slightest push. The morning after Carson gave away my prized bunny, I woke with a knot in my stomach. Something felt off. I crept to my collection room, heart pounding, and gasped at the sight before me. Entire shelves were bare, gaping holes where my beloved treasures once sat. "Carson!" I screamed, my voice cracking. He rushed in, eyes wide with alarm. "What's wrong?" "Wrong." I gestured wildly at the empty spaces. "They're gone. Half my collection is just gone." His face paled. I don't understand." "Maybe Rebecca borrowed." "Borrowed?" I snarled. "Without asking." "This isn't borrowing, Carson. It's theft." He reached for me, but I recoiled. "Nora, please. I'm sure there's an explanation." "Oh, there's an explanation, all right," I spat. "Your sister is a thief, and you're too blind to see it." Just then my phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "Thanks for the toys, sis. Look great in my new apartment." I thrust the phone at Carson. Watching the color drain from his face, I said, "I had no idea." He stammered, "How could you not know?" I demanded, "You've been giving her my things for weeks." "She said she was just borrowing them," he protested weakly. I laughed bitterly. "And you believed her? God, Carson, how can you be so naive?" His shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry, Nora. I'll talk to her, make her give everything back." But it was too late. The trust between us had shattered like fragile porcelain. I looked at my husband, this man I thought I knew, and saw a stranger. "It's not just about the toys," I said quietly. "It's about respect. It's about putting our marriage first. Can you do that, Carson? Can you choose me over your sister?" He hesitated, just for a moment, but it was enough. In that pause, I saw our future crumbling. "I need some time," I whispered, grabbing my keys. "Don't follow me." As I drove away, tears blurring my vision, I realized that the real theft wasn't just my collection. Rebecca had stolen my trust, my security, and possibly my marriage. I wasn't sure I'd ever get any of it back. I stormed into Carson's parents' house, my anger fueling every step. Carson trailed behind, pleading for me to calm down, but I was beyond reason. Rebecca sat on the couch, looking up with feigned innocence as we entered. "Give them back," I demanded, my voice low and dangerous. Rebecca blinked. "I don't know what you're talking about, Nora." "My collection, Rebecca. The toys you stole from me." Carson's mother, Ellen, guessed. "Stolen? Surely there's been a misunderstanding." I turned to her, my eyes blazing. "No misunderstanding. Your daughter has been systematically stealing my personal belongings for weeks, with Carson's unwitting help." Carson's father, George, stood up. "Now let's all take a deep breath." "No," I shouted, surprising even myself. "I'm done taking deep breaths. I want my things back, and I want an apology." Rebecca's face crumpled into tears. I just wanted to feel close to you both. I've been so lonely." I watched in disbelief as Carson's parents rushed to comfort her. Carson stood frozen, torn between his sister and me. "This isn't about loneliness," I said, my voice shaking. "It's about respect and boundaries, something this family seems to know nothing about." Ellen turned to me, her eyes cold. "Nora, there's no need to be cruel. Rebecca's going through a difficult time." I stood in our living room, arms crossed, as Carson paced before me. He'd been apologizing for an hour, promising change and swearing he'd make things right. "I'll talk to Rebecca," he said. "I'll make her return everything she took. I'll set boundaries, I swear." I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. "And what about your parents? Will you stand up to them too?" Carson hesitated, and my heart sank. "They're family, Nora. I can't just cut them off." "I'm your family too," I reminded him, or at least I thought I was. He reached for me, but I stepped back. "One more chance," I said. "That's all you get, but I need proof, not just words." Carson nodded eagerly. Anything. What do you need? Cut ties with Rebecca, I said firmly. Completely. At least until she can prove she's changed. His face fell, but he nodded. Okay, I'll do it. I choose you, Nora. I always will. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope. But as the days passed, doubt crept in. Carson was working late more often, always with a vague excuse. His phone would buzz constantly, but he'd ignore it when I was around. One night, unable to sleep, I checked his phone. What I saw made my blood run cold. Dozens of missed calls and texts from Rebecca, each more frantic than the last. The most recent one read, "Carson, please, I need you. The baby won't stop crying." Baby? What baby? My heart pounded as I dug deeper. Bank statements showed large withdrawals around the time Carson claimed to be working late. There were receipts for baby supplies, a crib, even a down payment on an apartment. The truth hit me like a tidal wave. Carson hadn't cut ties with Rebecca at all. He'd been supporting her in secret, lying to my face every day. As I sat there, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal, I felt something inside me shatter. This wasn't just about the toys anymore. This was about trust, respect, and the very foundation of our marriage. In that moment, I knew there was no coming back from this. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I confronted Carson the moment he walked through the door, my voice trembling with rage and hurt. Tell me about the baby, Carson. Tell me about the apartment you're paying for. His face drained of color. Nora, I can explain. Explain what? I spat. How you've been lying to me for months. How you chose your sister over our marriage. Carson's shoulders slumped. Rebecca needed help. She got pregnant, and the father left. I couldn't just abandon her. But you could abandon me? I asked, tears staining my eyes. Our vows meant nothing. He reached for me, but I recoiled. I was going to tell you, he pleaded. I just needed time to figure things out. A bitter laugh escaped me. Figure what out? How to move your sister and her baby into our home. Carson's silence was deafening. The realization hit me like a physical blow. That's it, isn't it? I whispered. You were going to ask me to let them move in. He nodded, unable to meet my eyes. It's just temporary until Rebecca gets back on her feet. We have this space and, no, I cut him off. Absolutely not. I won't do it, Carson. I can't. Nora, please, he begged. She's family. We can't turn our backs on her. And what about me? I cried. Am I not family? When do I come first? Carson's face crumpled. You both matter to me. I thought we could make it work. In that moment, I saw our future unravel before my eyes. A life of always coming second, of Carson forever torn between his wife and his sister. A life where my needs, my desires, my very self would always be an afterthought. I want a divorce, I said. The words fell like lead between us. Carson stumbled back as if I'd struck him. Nora, no. We can work this out. I'll do anything. But I was already moving, grabbing my keys and my purse. As I reached the door, I turned back one last time. I hope you and Rebecca are very happy together, I said, my voice breaking. Because you've just lost me forever. With that, I walked out, leaving behind the shattered remains of my marriage and the life I thought we'd built together. 6 months after walking out on Carson, I stood in the middle of my new apartment, surrounded by boxes of inventory for my online store. Amy bustled around, helping me organize the latest shipment of adorable plush toys. I still can't believe how well this is going, she said, grinning as she held up a fuzzy unicorn. I smiled back, a genuine smile that reached my eyes for the first time in months. Me neither. Who knew my childish obsession would turn into a thriving business? As we worked, my phone buzzed. A text from Carson. Can we talk? I miss you. I showed Amy, my hand shaking slightly. She squeezed my shoulder. What do you want to do? Taking a deep breath, I typed out a response. I'm sorry, Carson, but I've moved on. I hope you find happiness. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my chest. It was done, truly done. You okay? Amy asked softly. I nodded, surprised to find tears in my eyes. Yeah, I am. For the first time in a long time, I really am. Just then, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a group of my friends, all carrying gifts and bottles of champagne. Surprise, they cheered. We're here to celebrate your store's success. As they filed in, exclaiming over the cute toys and congratulating me, I felt a surge of warmth and gratitude. These people had stood by me through the darkest time of my life, and now they were here to celebrate my triumph. Later, as we all sat around, laughing and sharing stories, I looked around at the faces of my chosen family. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the pain, the betrayal, the fear of starting over, but also the strength I'd found within myself, the passion I'd rediscovered, and the love I'd received from those who truly cared. In that moment, surrounded by cute toys and even cuter friends, I realized something profound. My collection, once a secret shame, had become my salvation. It had led me to this new life, this new me, stronger, happier, and finally unapologetically myself. As I raised my glass for a toast, I knew with certainty that this was just the beginning of my happily ever after.